everybody. Welcome to the third episode of the Gathering Girl podcast. I've never said my name, but I don't know why I gravitated to be like, I'm Greta.
She's your host.
It's because we've done this now a couple of times.
Yeah.
But today is going to be a pretty interesting topic. This was the most, at least for me, when I asked what kind of topics do you want us to talk about? This one was the highest one. And it could be because, obviously there's so many women at our church that are single. But today we're going to talk about singleness.
Wop, wop, wop.
I feel like, so we were telling the people that are in this room that we were going to give a disclaimer because, I think if you come to the gathering, maybe you kind of know our personalities already based on like how we preach and stuff like that. I don't usually talk about relationships. I always tell my husband if we ever have like a marriage,
which we are, we're gonna have one.
We are, but they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I cannot be the preacher because like my answers are not very sweet. And so my disclaimer is that when it comes to, I feel like talking like relationships or, I can be just pretty straightforward. And so take that for what it is. All right.
So should I say my disclaimer?
Yeah, you should say your disclaimer.
My disclaimer is that this isn't a subject that I dive into too much. Not because of anything in specific, more because I've always wanted to be more cooked in this area. Because I know it's a sensitive topic for a lot of women. And so I never wanted to sound not nice about it or not live through it. But I feel that now at 30, I've lived through it.
Yeah, these are not like I don't usually volunteer for like these topics, whether it be singleness,
They
marriage.
made me volunteer for this. Let's just be very clear about this.
Well, let's be clear.
Okay.
They picked the subjects. Like I think if it would have been up to me and you, we would have not done this subject. But I did want to go based on like the needs or whatever people highlighted the most. And this was I just don't feel not like my pet peeve is the kind of person that like they've been married for like 2 seconds and now they're like marriage gurus and
and I feel the same way with like singleness, which is why I mean like the uncooked thing where it's like the person that got married at 22, 23 saying like, I've waited for so long. No, you did not. No, you did not. Don't tell me what waiting is like. You don't know. But grace to them. They found their person early on.
They were single for like 5 seconds and they were like, I waited on God.
I was single for 18 years. I got married at 19. Just kidding.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. But let's be honest, I do think that's where we wanted to give the disclaimer because that's where Amy and I are coming from. It's not that I have a problem with this subject. I just don't think like I'm not an expert, but we will give you our advice and we will answer some of the questions that came in and we'll do it to the best of our abilities and
as faithfully to the word as we can.
Yes. And you can also not take our advice.
Yeah.
But we will be like, I guess, sisters in Christ.
Yes.
Who give very direct answers, I guess.
I could be nice, but like it's just one of those subjects. To be honest, guys, like last Gathering Girls, if you were here, we had a what did you call it? A panel.
A panel, yeah.
And I remember specifically saying like this was before I was a member of the gathering and I was one of the guests and they showed me like, hey, we're gonna have a panel. These are some of your questions. Like, okay, great. I'm good with all these subjects. So I have just one request. Don't ask me about singleness. Mm-hmm. So I went up on stage really confident, like, okay, we're talking about ministry and calling, all of that.
It's a cup of tea right
there.
Yeah,
love it. And then Greta decides to ask me, so, as the only single woman up here.
Because I felt like everybody was talking about being married and,
And, like, maybe this is a good springboard. When I was up there, one of the big things that I felt was the different women, which I understand marriage is a ministry, but then I looked around the room and just the demographic of the gathering, and most of the girls are either young family or single.
Yeah.
And I felt like this void in the room as people feel less significant because they're not married, and it's because the church has perpetuated this idea that meaning and purpose comes when you're married. and we've completely disregarded singleness as a ministry. And so when I was up there, I was like, no, not just marriage is a ministry, but singleness is a ministry.
Yeah. And you gave great answers. And I think even online after we were done, like it resonated with so many more people. One of the things that I know for Gathering Girls, and it's not saying that we're never going to have these topics. That's why more I wanted to lean it towards the panel. And then I'm taking it here for like a podcast setting. But I don't ever see neither really much relationship topics being touched in Gathering Girls. Not because there isn't a need, but I just feel like the church is saturated with that. Like that you can find anywhere. Like you can find 1,000 preachings on it and stuff like that. And for me, Gathering Girls is more honing in on just following Jesus, being a disciple. And I'm not saying that that's not, obviously, like I'm married, I've been single, like whatever. It's not that those are not important, but I sometimes feel like one of the people that DM'd me during these conversations, we started it was a different topic, but it was one of the people that I ended up responding to because she's a new mom of her second child, and she's serving and all that stuff. And we were talking about the fact that how early we came back to serving, because it's when you serve and you're here, it's the one thing that reminds you that it's you and God. Like you have this relationship with God. Before you were anybody's wife, before you were anybody's mom, you were his daughter, and you continue to be his daughter. And we were just going back and forth on that, and on why we started serving even after kids, because sometimes it feels like it's the one reminder that you're a woman and God called you and God sees you. And so I don't think that I mean, unless God tells me to in a very specific way, I don't see these topics making it onto like what we preach about during Gathering Girls. But I do think that obviously if we received so many messages on it, then it is an important topic. It is an important topic.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do think that we have to respond to it, because that is the community that God is asking us to shepherd. Yes, the gathering is primarily young families. It's a lot of millennials and also a lot of women, and not women that have been single for 2 months, like women who are faithfully waiting on the Lord, and they've been waiting for years. And so I do, just out of obedience, obviously, like seeing all of those things, I was like, okay, then this is one of the topics that we have to talk about in the podcast. I don't think, and we can start from here, I don't think that the church, Big C, we're millennials, you and I both.
Zillennial.
And so we grew up where, or I'll talk about me and then you talk about you. Because I don't know if this is the environment that you grew up in. But we didn't really, like in youth retreats or anything, I don't think that we were taught like a very healthy way of seeing relationships or seeing singleness. Mm-hmm. It was mostly, don't have sex, it's a sin. If you had sex, you're in sin. Mm-hmm. Just don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And one day you're going to be married. And I feel like then there was a lot of like purity culture, especially in our middle school days. If you were a Christian during, I'm 33, so if you're in middle school around the same one, if you remember the Jonas Brothers and like everybody, y'all remember, like they had like
the rings.
They was probably out and about, doing extracurriculars.
I'm not gonna.
Okay, fine. You go ahead. But
yeah, the pastor.
But that was the thing, like that little bracelet, a little ring. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but you grew up in an environment where we didn't really talk much about it. And I do believe that in Christianity, marriage is idolized.
Yes.
Like that's your goal. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are some people that are called to marriage and some people that are not called to marriage. Mm-hmm. But I really, really think that Christian people you know? They make the goal of your life to be somebody's wife or somebody's husband.
I mean, the crazy thing is that when you're in church and you are of a certain age, if you start asking like, "Oh, are you, are you married? Are you dating?" No. And they make it like if something's wrong with you. Like there's an automatic like sympathy eyes for like, "Oh, don't worry, like it'll happen when you least expect
Your
it.
man will come."
Yeah, like God's gonna send you the right person at the right time." And even if your response isn't exactly like your heart is heavy because you don't, but the automatic Christian response or church response is, I'm gonna be praying for you for this to happen. And to be honest, it's kind of one of the worst things that you can say to singles during that time. This is something that I kind of battle back and forth with. Of when you talk to people who are married, or most people, they'll say one of two things. They'll say that, or they'll tell you, "Oh, just enjoy this time. Like I wish I was single again, so I can have all this time back." And they'll hype up what this season is.
Wishing to be single again is. I would ask other questions like,
yeah. Or like you have no idea how good it is when you're single, right? When you can be going through the worst moments of like, "Girl, I don't feel that way at all." And then I started realizing that sometimes people who say that didn't really get to enjoy their singleness era or their singleness season, which I don't even like calling it that, right? Because they're retrospectively looking and saying, "Oh, I would have done this. I would have traveled. I would have gone after this. I would have gone after these dreams." Kind of like, have you seen Aisha Curry's like interview about Steph Curry of like, "Oh, if I was single, I would have done this, this, and that," and it's kind of perpetuating this false narrative of what singleness is and what singleness looks like. And one of the things I've really asked the Lord, if I really believe that the Lord orders my times and orders my seasons, and I really believe that he says there is a time to laugh and a time to cry, then I have to believe that the Lord knows that there's a time for me to be single and a time for me to be married.
Yeah.
And if I truly believe that, then I'm going to look back when I'm married and say, I really did enjoy and give my all to God during the time that I was single. In the same way that when I'm married, I'll look at that season and say, I'm going to give my all to God in this season. But I refuse to look at either season with regret or despair as if I did not do everything that God called me to do during that time.
I love that. I didn't really grow up with the pressure at home. Because, I mean, we are Hispanic, and I feel like in a lot of Hispanic households, you have like a ticking clock. And if you're not.
Me, honey. My
So
I got 3 brothers, and my dad.
That's the kind of environment that I grew up. I grew up with brothers, and my mom has always been like she always pushed me to discover my own, right? Like what God wanted to do with me. I never really felt the pressure. Like my mom was never like, I want to have grandbabies already. Like my mom never used that kind of language.
Which
and
a
so
lot of people do.
Yes, especially in Hispanic culture, like a lot of parents do. I don't know any other culture because I've only been Hispanic all my life.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
So I don't know if other cultures do it. Nancy's laughing over there, but I've been Hispanic my whole life. And sometimes let's be honest, for Hispanic women, there's that pressure of like, you have to be married by this time. You have to have kids by this time. I didn't grow up with that pressure.
Let alone societal pressures. Societal pressures is a whole other thing, but.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with that. And so my mom always pushed me to be very independent. And I did start dating my husband very young. But even still, like, I don't know. I started doing ministry on my own, and then when I met him, I was kind of like already, like, I mean, this is what I do, and even since I met him, like, it has never changed, like, really, like, much for me in my desire, my pursuit for Christ or what I was trying to do at school. Like, I've just naturally have always been a very driven, this is my goal, and that's what I go and get. So yeah, I never felt that pressure at home. And even like dating my husband, one of the things that I really have appreciated is like, I've never really been in a rush. Like at some point, yes, I wanted to get married. And that was when we were a little bit older. And I got engaged at 24, so it wasn't even that much older. But yeah, I was always clear, like, I want to go to school. And like, he was starting his business and all that stuff. So even in that, I even kids, I started having kids in my 30s. To some people, that's not like some people want to be parents young. Did not want to be a mom young. I always knew all of my 20s, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do this. If I get married, I get married, you know, and I'm going to focus like enjoying my marriage. And so I can honestly say that up to this point, I have enjoyed every single season. And now that I'm married, I love to be married. But I also really loved discovering who I am. I think before I got married, I learned how to go out on dates by myself. Like I can be by myself. Like, and I learned so many of those valuable things. And then I can truly say like, no, I really enjoyed my singleness. I enjoyed dating my husband. And then I enjoy now having children now that I'm in my 30s. And truly, I was talking to Pastor Chani when she came, and I was like, is it true that when your kids grow up, like you're going to miss them being this little? And then she was like, not if you are intentional about enjoying every single season. And so I look forward to when I no longer have little kids and, you know, just I think that enjoying and knowing that God has purpose, yes, for every season. If we live like that, then we shouldn't end up in a season and be like, oh, I miss so much when, like, why do you think people say that?
Well, because I don't want to dismiss the feelings that come with singleness, because that would be me not really layering how complex it is, because it is. If I were to sit here and say that at this age I don't wonder, I'd be lying. If I were to sit here and say that there's not this, you know, God, why not? I'd be lying. So it is very complex because it comes with feelings. But what I will say is that I've been able to face all those feelings with God, and I have not hid those feelings from Him. For me, singleness and marriage has been something that I've hidden very deeply in my heart. And I do believe it's because God has a purpose for it in a very special way. Besides just marriage, I think that before, when you're growing up, you know, you think, oh, by 25, I'm going to have this, I'm going to be in this place in my life, I would have accomplished this. But then the years go on, and nothing that you thought was going to happen is what's happened. And one thing I tell, you know, a lot of people that are in this season or that have asked me for this advice is that when you're in your younger, like 20s, you think very selfishly about things because that's all you know at that time, like what I want from my life, what I desire. And now I'm in a place where one of two things. If the Lord wills it, amen. And the Lord doesn't, amen. But in either side, I will always have Him. I've also learned that I've had to be a little bit more specific with my prayers, in the sense of, what do you actually want? Before, it was praying for a husband and a partner, and now it's more praying, yes, there's a layer of that, but what kind of father do I want my children to have? And that thinking about a father turns your prayers to be less selfish. And so I'm not thinking even about me anymore. I'm thinking about my kids, because I know that your home life is your first ministry. And even how I grew up as a kid, I got to experience the Lord firsthand through my parents and how they experienced God. And I know that I have a charge for my generations of how they're going to experience God. Isn't how they see mom on stage, isn't how they see dad on stage. If he is, I don't know if he is there, but like, it's how they experience mom and dad at home. And if I truly believe that God wants, through my generations, to do some chain breaking, then I have to do some self-denial now. Because it's very easy. I tell people this all the time. Like, if I really wanted to, it's very simple. I could have by now. It's very simple. It's not that hard to download an app. It's not that hard to say yes to anybody that asks you. But I'm sorry, I'm not going after anybody. I'm going after somebody that can minister my heart to the Lord and minister my family. And if those aspects are not present, then I can't go forward. because I'm truly treating it like a ministry, just how I'm ministering to myself now, and God is pouring into me now. I've always said that I believe if singleness is a gift, then I believe that it's God telling me I'm not done with just being me and you right now. There's something that God still wants in the intimacy of just me and him right now that will not exist in a later stage. But if I don't keep that in mind, that it's really not about me, and that it's about my generations, then my prayers are going to crumble into somebody that's simply going to be a companion. And for companionship, I can find friendship. And I've learned the beauty of friendship in this season of singleness. But that latter part, I desire so deeply for my kids who don't exist to experience God in their home. I want them to be able to identify this is what God's love looks like and sounds like before ever even stepping into church doors. And that can only happen if I buckle down and don't allow my feelings to be the thing that leads me, even though sometimes it does, or my grief to shake me, even though sometimes it does. I have to be grounded and rooted in the word and in the promises that God has over my life and over my family.
There's two things that come to my mind as I was hearing you talk. The fact, and I'll go in this specific way, right? The first one is, okay, so I first started by saying that a lot of Christian people idolize marriage. And you and I talk about this, especially like TikTok culture, right? Where everybody's always waiting on their man or waiting on their other half in order to pursue ministry, in order to answer the call of God over themselves. And this is a two-folded like thing that I want to talk about. But I when I see those kind of things, it makes me a little mad on the inside, because I almost feel like they're telling single people that God cannot fulfill whatever he's trying to do with them unless they have another half, which I don't believe in that.
No.
You know?
And let's take the first two examples.
That's my beef. That's my beef with TikTok, because I feel like it almost is like, oh, singleness is your punishment. And then when you have the person, then I'll call you, then I'll use you.
We treated it like a curse. So it becomes, sorry for lack of better words, like the leprosy of the church. And that's just not the way that it is. If it really was like that, like if God made that a necessary thing, then Jesus would have got married. Jesus had his whole ministry as what? Single. You talk about the person who wrote the most of the New Testament, Paul, who was single. And so there is no theological debate about this if singleness is like not, if being married is the superior way of viewing it. I don't think so. Do I believe that there are people that are called to marriage? Yes. Do I believe that God flourishes things in marriage? Yes. But even me as a single person who is in ministry, do I believe that there's something missing or something lacking? No, because the Bible tells me that nothing good does he withhold from me. So if God hasn't brought that thing yet, God's not withholding from me. It's just not time for it yet. So if I ever view it as like God is keeping this away from me, or God doesn't want me to experience this yet, no, that's not what it is. It just hasn't happened yet. Now, here's a little thing that I have with the church, that often when people, they do hear that you are single, the first reaction or the knee-jerk reaction is like, you know, God's just still working on you. That is the worst thing you can say, because that would mean that when I'm married,
you're fixed.
I'm fixed. I'm great. That there's no more sanctification that needs to happen in me. But you haven't gotten that person yet because you're still not sanctified. Or we hold it over the head. and I want to bring freedom to a lot of single people. You are not in punishment with God by being single right now.
Come on. No,
You're not. God is not punishing you. God is not withholding something. Like, one of the most beautiful verses in the Bible is, if he already has given you your son, how much more will he not give you? If he already gave me the greatest thing in Jesus Christ, then why wouldn't he give me something else?
He's giving you Christ. He thinks he's withholding that.
He's not
that
withholding
man.
nothing. And a lot of people are under that, like, oh, you know, is this a punishment for my past sins? Am I in bondage still? Or is this someone from my past that I should still be with because God hasn't? No. Mm-hmm. No. Like, if we try to think that God is this master manipulator, you're never going to see your singleness as a gift. And that whole master manipulator thought isn't something that comes from the Bible. It actually comes from the enemy. Because that's what I mean when I say, if I really wanted to, I could.
What? Yes.
If I really, at this moment, all I have to do is open up, download an app.
Or answer a DM.
And apparently all my problems would be fixed, right?
And that's such a problematic train of thought for me, that like, oh, when I fix this, then God will like call me. I started dating my husband and when I was 16. I left my stepfather's house at 15. I shouldn't have been in no relationship, right? And sometimes I talk to him now and then I'm like, you know, it would have been cool to meet later on because we're much cooler later on in life, you know? But I remember leaving my stepdad's house and just having such a void for, man, I was just so desperate for love. And it wasn't even just in relationships. I grew up not being able to really talk to the outside world because my stepdad was very, very paranoid. And he didn't ever want us to like ask for help or anything like that. So even the thought of me ever being married, I don't know, it didn't cross my mind because I never saw a world where I was outside of my stepdad's control. And so maybe that's why I never thought about it. But I leave and I'm hurting and I'm broken and I'm just looking for anything to distract me from it. And then a year later, I ended up meeting my husband. It just came about that way. Eventually, like later on, we would break up, and it was so necessary because I was a mess. Like I was a really, really big mess. I had so much trauma. I had like, I was so depressed. I was self-harming. Like the last thing that I should have been looking for was a man, right? Now, I remember because we were separated for like a year, and it was the healthiest thing, right? Because he went about his life, I went about my life. And that's truly when I start the journey of like really giving my burdens onto the Holy Spirit and really having him work in my life. And I went through like I started going to college. I started doing life on my own, you know, like I'm an adult now. And truly like that year of not being with him, like I do worship. So naturally, like even when you're in ministry or there's offers on the table, right? And I remember going on 1 and 2 dates and being like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. Like I got to work on me because if not, it's going to be the same problems, different face, you know? But my point is that like now I'm married, right? And the thing that I have discovered is like, there's no point where you can say, yeah, I'm fixed, therefore God will give me this. Like, I see my life as like, when you go through some of the things that I went through, I am a lifelong, I need to, the rest of my life, depend on the Holy Spirit to heal me, restore me, renew my mind. That's a never-ending process. And so what I don't like is the idea that, okay, if you're married, then something's fixed already, you know, or also that you just only have to be single in order to work on yourself. Because now I'm married and there's different triggers that come to me now that I'm married, now that I'm a mom. But I can't be like, oh, you know what? I need 1 year away from you guys to like fix me. And so when it comes, I don't know why we are obsessed with like one day being fully completed, you know, like no longer work in progress. And so it's this idea that, oh, God is either withholding because I'm broken. And there is a time where you should know yourself and be like, yeah, the last thing I need is a relationship.
The best time that within that, because in the same sense, I'm not saying that absolves everybody. You know, I do think that there's seasons that God really does have you through the refinement process, and there's some impurities and thoughts that he wants to, drag out of you and remove away from you. I'll even say that during those seasons, God really removes like the thought of timelines away from you.
Yeah.
At this point, like, I will say this, like, God does not owe me one thing.
No,
and in the same way that I say that God is not a master manipulator, in the same way, I cannot manipulate him. So often we approach God as this genie and we say, well, God, if I prove to you that I'm a woman of God, if I prove to you that I'm a woman after your own heart, then will you bring me a man that's after your own heart? And we have the devotionals and we have the prayers. And in all reality, you have to do a heart check of why you're actually doing all those things. Because if it's to prove to God that you're ready, you're doing it with the wrong intentions. Because knowing the Lord is a lifelong journey. It's not just something that I'm so specifically focused in just during that time. I think that it is intensified where there's nothing that's stripping away your attention. But I am in no way twisting God's arm, and I am in no way doing God a favor by me doing my devotions and by me doing my prayers. That's not me doing God a favor. That is God meeting a broken person in a broken space to do a work that only he can do.
100%.
And the moment that I think that I'm going to manipulate God, check the affections of your heart again. Check what you have as an idol in your heart, because in the same way, like, a single person can be idolizing marriage. A single person can be idolizing, dating. A single person can be idolizing the ring and idolizing the wedding. But there's going to come a point where the wedding is done and the ring, you saw it. And now the person, you're going to have to face them every day, and you're going to have to face yourself every day and be in front of a creator. And so the journey never ends.
No.
And for me, I'm like, Lord, do whatever work you need to do. Refine me any way that you need to refine me. Not so I can be ready for a person, but simply for the fact that you say that those with clean hands and pure hearts will see you.
Correct.
And what I want to do is see you in my singleness, see you in my marriage, see you in my kids, see you in my ministry. And if you do none of those things, then I want to spend the rest of my life in awe of you and in pursuit of you. Everything else will come.
That has to be the posture always. The when we went to that pastor's thing, the thing that impacted me the most was what Pastor Noemi said. Because now I don't find myself in a single season. I find myself where
Can you tell them that she's gonna?
No. We don't say.
You don't want to say, okay.
Okay. So, anyways, I was super blessed by her because she was saying, she was talking about her season with little babies, right? And I do think that in this season, I find myself doing a lot of very redundant things. Like, I clean booty every single day, like, that's my life. I clean somebody else's booty. I'm giving snacks to somebody, and somebody came to her and be like, don't you want to be this? Don't you want to do that? And then her response is the response that I'll never forget, where she says, God knows exactly where I am. I'm not hidden from God. He knows where I am right now, folding these baby clothes, and there's purpose for that too. And I do think that it is thinking that exactly that God punishes us. It is a punishment, Like, I don't see that even now that I'm a mom and I'm getting snacks and I'm wiping booty. That's not a punishment. It's such a gift, But every season is a gift. And there's no season that, there is really no season that we should idolize.
No. I do think that, for singles in the church, you're often treated as a second-class citizen in a way.
100%.
And I was having a conversation with this, someone that goes in another church, another state, where they said, sometimes, my church has, these family series, and we talk about, what it's like to be a parent and what it's like to be, a family with mom and dad, or what it's like to be divorced. And they go, but for some reason, the conversation that's always missing is singles. And I was looking at her, I was like, she got a really good point. Because if my whole life revolves, you never stop being an individual. Never. You never stop being an individual. And if your whole life revolves around husband and kids, and you never learn yourself as an individual, you will lose yourself somewhere in the process. And so I feel for people who are single, and it's also because these conversations aren't perpetuated. And if they are perpetuated, it's by people that say, it's going to happen for you someday, like when you least expect it. No, I don't want to hear that message anymore. I want to hear the messages about why it's a gift. I want to hear the messages about how we get to be unreserved with our devotion and our time with the Lord. I want to hear the messages about why Paul said it was a gift. Like, why? What's the purpose behind that? I want to hear the beauty behind it to where we stop feeling second class. And there's a generation of women that feel that they don't have a place and they're out of the fold because they're not like that mom or that person with the husband or living with their partner. And there's people that are even settling for less to at least have the semblance of a partner because they want that so bad. And I don't want to negate that. Like, it's human nature. Like the Bible, God never made us to be alone. God never made us to live life by ourselves. Like, there is an innate thing in us that is like, I want companionship.
Yeah, he gives the desire.
He gives the desire. Let's not mistake that. He gives the desire. But there's a generation of people that are settling for less, settling for what God never intended for them. I call that, you know how I got into the Abrahamic decision. But there's a generation of that because the church has perpetuated this narrative that singleness is not a viable option or a way to live.
And the truth of the matter is, so right now we're getting to pastor a lot of single women and single men, right? Like, for example, God has trusted us, with you. And my husband and I talk about this all the time because what a waste it would be for us to be waiting for like, oh yeah, but when Amy gets married and she has no, because you were trusted to us now. And just the same way that you were trusted to us, we have other women in leadership who are not married, who are in their 30s. And the one thing that we are always really cautious of is like, making space for both people who are married and have children, people who are older and are empty nesters, but also people who are younger and not being like, yeah, you can serve in this capacity once you have a ring in your finger. That's just such a dumb idea to us because if God wanted to bring you married, he would have, but he brought you single. And we cannot wait to like use you or, like really believe in what God has called over your life because you don't have a man. I do believe that a lot of people don't date with generational things in mind. And this is what I think in anything when we are not thinking generationally, we will always settle for less in every area. Yes. But especially like in this area, like loneliness and the need to be needed or wanted, which
has provided the way for a lot of addictions and for things to captivate you.
And I think like everybody, because it's like I'm breaking generational curses, but are you though? Like, are you? And if we don't think generationally, then truly we're going to end up in relationships that do the exact same thing that we said we were never going to do. Because I grew up in a super dysfunctional family, there was just some things for me that were non-negotiables. And I dated people, I talked to people, and man, there were some times where I would see the red flag, and I was like, Greta, it don't matter how you feel in this moment. You know that 2 + 2 = 4. Why are you acting like that? Or why are you entertaining something? And I think that it was one of the areas where, man, I was super cutthroat. And it wasn't because I didn't want to date around, but it was because I'm coming from, look, in my family, my mom has 6 siblings. They are 7 altogether. They were all married. Every single woman experienced domestic violence. There's 1 standing marriage out of the 6 of them. It's not just that I saw dysfunction in my own house. It's that even my extended family, I did not see 1 functional relationship. So when I then started to date and Even though I started young with Elias, but still like, and then even when we broke up and got back together and we were already like adults at that point, man, I remember getting back together and sitting down and I was just like, hey, you made me at 16. I was this, I was this, I was that. But now this is who I am. Like, I'm a woman now. This is what I need from a partner, blah, blah, blah. And there have been moments in our relationship where I have to have if you're not an individual, if you're not convicted, you don't have your own convictions, your own relationship for God, you're going to turn into whoever you date.
Yeah.
I'll never forget there was a season where my husband he was not my husband in this time. He did not want to go to church. He wanted to stop ministry, whatever. And man, conversation where I was just like, you know that I will always follow the Lord. So if that's no longer what you want, I'm telling you right now, you can sink, but I'm not sinking with you. And he always, in our relationship, we have had present, I love you, Elias, but I don't love you like I love the Lord.
Well, let's pause for that for a second, right? Like, let's emphasize on this. Because a lot of the times, because of familiarity, people decide to stay. Here's my issue with that. If you're not married, you have no obligation.
None.
If you are somebody's girlfriend, you have no business doing wifely things for them. In the same way, if you're somebody's boyfriend, you have no business doing husband things for them. You are giving them a license to cross a boundary that is not sanctified by the Lord and that you're not tied to. And so there's this thing where it's like, if I don't give them, they're going to find it somewhere else. Let them find it somewhere else. Let them find it somewhere else. Let them go somewhere else, because that tells me that character was never supposed to mesh with mine. And I'm not going to sink myself in order to keep somebody else around where it just might very well be a certain situation was enough to show me God doesn't want that in my life. So if you're in the situation where you're not married, let them.
And truly, like, I think like it's such a, I really try to, especially now that I'm a pastor, I really try to mind my business. If somebody, like even my brother can testify, right, Robert? Like I say, if somebody will ask me for advice, I will be honest. But I do not freely go and give advice to any relationship, because everybody got to pick. I already picked who I wake up in the morning with. I already made my choice. And therefore, I have to live with whatever consequences, good or bad. That's what I picked. Mm-hmm. And so relationships is the one thing where I will never tell somebody break up. Like, mm-hmm. I won't say that. Everybody has to pick, mm-hmm. because everybody has to see what not just they want in their family. And that truly what you're saying is like, sometimes women have such a shallow list. Mm-hmm. And yes, he could be, my pet peeve is like, every woman on TikTok be like, if he's not 6 feet, girl, he could be 6 feet with a horrible character.
Can I tell him what I found out? That Paul might have been 4 feet.
No. Then we want to finish in an hour.
I'm just letting you know that I heard a theory.
That Paul was short.
That Paul might have been 4 or 5.
A short king. But man, we have a list of sometimes like what we lust for, what is hot to us or what we are attracted to. And what about the list of like, what do you want to see him be as like a husband, mm-hmm. as a dad?
Well, let me scale it back. Like, I think the reason that we have a shallow list is because we are fishing for our desires more than what is truly supposed to mirror. And so I believe that there's a generation that's really anemic in their knowledge of who Jesus is.
Oh, come on.
Because when we actually know who Jesus is, like when people say, oh, Amy, like you just have such a high standard. Yeah, I do. Because I have gotten to know this man named Jesus. And at this point, I'm not seeking potential. I am seeking who he is. Mm. And my list has to reflect Jesus' character. My list has to reflect who he has shown himself to be. And at the end of the day, the call of a man is literally the call of Christ. You will die. And
this, I know that we're kind of speaking to women, but this also, serve in worship team, and sometimes worship team is primarily like all the musicians are males and stuff like that. So it's a very male dominated space. And this space is like vice versa, because we're not just here pumping up like,
I'm listening.
like, no. I feel, because I had to look for a question too. But I tell men the same thing. Like, I know that in church and even in just regular culture, there's all of these things of like, a woman don't settle, a woman don't settle. But hey, men, like, don't settle either. You know, like, this is not just for women. This can also be for men, in the sense of like, man, you're dating generationally too. And you have the right to pick what kind of woman you want to go into covenant with and what kind of woman you want to have children with. And this is not like just a gender thing. Like, if we all dated with intention, dating would look so different.
Yes. I mean, I'll even put it this way. Like, if you're only, like, I'm going to put me, for example. If I'm only praying that God would help them, but I'm not saying God help me, and I'm asking of them something I can't do myself, then I'm not even in the same place. I should not be asking for anything. Because in the same way that I'm asking for them to be surrendered to Christ, I better be surrendered to Christ.
I'll never forget one of the most humbling moments when I first got married was I was praying for my husband. I was praying for his deficiencies and like all this stuff. And I'm never going to forget, I was praying and I heard the Holy Spirit in my heart say, man, you tell me a lot about him and you never bring your problems to me, what you're struggling with, how you need me to refine you. I read you this, and this woman, I appreciate her vulnerability and her honesty, but she said, I don't want what God wants for me if it's not what I want in a person. And so she might have said it like out loud in like my DMs, but there's a lot of women who have this same mentality. Like, yes, they idolize the idea of like, oh, God's going to bring somebody to me. But let's be honest, a lot of people want what they want and not what God wants. And the reason that one like really stood out for me is because I think that dating is one of those places where a lot of people don't want to date according to what God says. But then when they reap the consequences of their actions, they blame God for not safeguarding them. It is okay to exclude God. No, okay, hear me out in this way. It is okay for you to exclude God in a certain area in your life, right? That could be your finances, your singleness, whatever. You can tell God you have no space here. I mean, I really think that that's not like a real disciple. You know, if there's areas in your life where he cannot touch, you need to reconsider where you are with God, because that doesn't work. Like, to me, this response was a deeper issue. Girl, if you have boundaries for the Holy Spirit, you're not fully surrendered to the Holy Spirit. But here is the thing. Even though she might have vocalized it and she was brave enough to do that, there's a lot of women who want their will and not God's will. Everybody is okay. It is okay if you choose, I don't want to follow the Spirit. I don't want to surrender to the Spirit. But here is my very straightforward answer. That's fine. But later on in your life, when you're reaping what you wanted, keep the same energy.
And don't blame God.
And don't blame God.
Yeah. Like, you have to be so sure what you want your household to be like. I want to play a clip. I don't know if it'll read it on the mic, but I want to play a clip of Voddie Baucham, which is one of my favorite preachers. And he gives this message to single women that always inspires me to remember what it is that I want. So I'm going to try to play it, and then you guys can let me know if you can actually hear it.
Let me say this with all of the urgency that I can. If you have not found a man whose godliness is something that you want shepherding your children, don't marry him. He'll be the father of your children, the shepherd of your family. Don't do it. I don't care how tall and handsome and rich rich and whatever else you want to. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It will never be enough. And there are plenty of Christian women who married for looks and for status and for money, for whatever else, who would plead with you and say, girl, please don't do that. Don't do that. I would give anything to have a godly man who loves the Lord, who knows the word, who can disciple me, who can disciple my children, who can be a godly example, rather than me having to rescue my children not only from the world, but from the influence of their ungodly dad.
That's literally what it boils down to. And you sit enough with, and I think this is why generational talks are so important. My mom had this saying, and my parents had this saying, is, tú tienes espejos para qué aprender. You have enough mirrors to learn what you need to learn. And as someone who had a mom and a dad who became parents very early on, my mom at like 17, my dad was 15, around that age, and saw them live a life of sacrifice. And when your parents are young, you also grow up with their mistakes as well. Like you see all those things. But whenever I really put it into perspective and I'm like, God, number one, if I am your daughter, I'm trusting that you're going to entrust me to one of your sons. And one of the markers I've always had is, if the person I am considering, I cannot call them a son of God, I don't want to even be anywhere near them.
And it truly, it's so much easier said than done.
100%.
So much easier said than done. But I think at some point, I'm never going to forget when I turned 18, my mom sat with me and she said, you know, like basically like I had seen her failures. I had seen like all of these things. And she told me, I will not be the mom that stays up till 2 a.m. waiting for you. Because if you want to do whatever you want to do with your life, you're going to do it behind my back. There's nothing I can do. And she told me, from here on forward, you have to decide what you want for your life. And according to that, make your decisions. Mm-hmm. You've seen me, like I'd seen her with abusive men. You want that? You're going to pick that. Mm-hmm. You've seen me struggle as a single mom. Yeah. You want that? You know, and I'll never forget that conversation, because once I turned 18, my mom was not harassing me. My mom was not like, where are you? What time are you going to get home? I was mostly at church. Mm-hmm. But like, that conversation was one of the conversations that I remember the most having with my mom. And always thinking in my mind, man, I am going to be like, my life in the future, if I like it, like truly it's going to be God's mercy, God's grace, God helping me and guiding me. But number 2 is going to be my choices. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes, man, and we do this in so many areas, because we love instant gratification. Because, man, we want something fast. We want something now. This is the worst area. Mm-hmm. This is the worst area for that. There are so many things that happen when this is the area where you want fast. Really, this is the area where you don't want to honor. Like, it's such a huge area to exclude God from. Yeah. And truly, like, I've always kept that in my mind. You know, like that conversation, I've seen my mom struggle. Man, I saw what my mom went through, you know, and then asking myself, that's what you want? Mm-hmm.
It's like, pick your heart.
You got to pick a heart. Yes.
You got to pick your heart. And one of the things that, yes, I cast it onto the men of, you're called to die. But I have fully come to a place where I understand that next phase, it's such a different calling on my life. And I think that the reason we treat it so softly is because we've seen the world treat marriage so flippantly, where it's like, one day I can get married, and if things are getting really bad, let me show you how easy divorce is. Let me show you how easy I can get out of this. And one of my petitions to the Lord has been, God, this is holy. Being single is holy work. And as much as that is hard, it's holy work that I do with God. And in the same way, I want to have the recognition that next phase is holy work as well. I was actually seeing a TikTok. Sometimes TikTok be coming through. But I was seeing a TikTok, and I wrote this down here. At times we think that the man has the harder job when we say you will die, which I do agree. But then there's a word that the Bible uses for the wife, and it's what? That you shall be their helper. And so many times we think that, oh, well, helper is, oh, you're just somebody's assistant or somebody's sidekick, or you're less than because you're not taking the authoritative role. But that's not what it is. The actual word that is used in Genesis is the word ezer. And ezer means that you are somebody's help, strength, and rescuer. And when you think about that, the only other times that comes out or that description is used is in light of God. So God uses the same description he has for himself as a description he's using for women as they are with somebody, as they're married to somebody. And it's in Psalms 33 verse 20 where it says he is our help, or he is our ezer and our shield.
Wow.
Psalm 121, 1-2, he is my help, Ezer comes from the Lord. Deuteronomy 33:29, God is called a help and a deliverer. God is our Ezer. And so when you think about that, God is not just, you're not just graduating in the next step of life. You are actually stepping into a holy call that God has for you in the area of sanctified marriage. And so when I think about that, I'm like, God, I'm doing a holy work now, and I'm also going to do a holy work then. And what I'm scared about is a generation just wanting the ring and just wanting the ceremony and just wanting a companion, not understanding that what God is actually calling you into is a role that only he calls himself to. Mm-hmm. And that's the role you're going to play in somebody's life.
And truly, like, I think that there is no perfect man and there's no perfect woman, right? And so this is not a call to like, oh yeah, find somebody that's perfect, because you won't. You're not gonna find anybody. Every man has like where they fall short.
That does not mean we date for potential.
No.
Well,
at
the age,
at the ripe age of ours, I don't think that you should date potential.
No.
But that's like, I mean,
like the bar cannot be he brushed his teeth and he took a shower
not
today.
in your 30s, girl.
That cannot be the bar.
Obviously, like when you're in your teenage years, you're in your early 20s, that's the time where you're discovering who you are and going early 20s. Everybody learning how to be, hopefully, a man, a woman, a character, how to have more integrity. Everybody has to grow up.
Do you want to know what the word integrity means in the Bible?
What?
So I just learned this because we always hear about the word integrity. What it actually means is to be unfractured and to have a sense of wholeness. And so when you think about what is a man of integrity, a woman of integrity, is a person that lives with such wholeness. And as much as God is a redeeming God, I don't view man as the person that's going to redeem me. So in all your fractures and all of that, like all the character that God is building, it's so you can be actually a person of integrity and wholeness.
So we'll wrap this up in about 10 minutes, so that we can, but in the essence of there being nobody that is perfect, but everybody does show fruit. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so important to fruit. See. Oh yeah, 100%. Because like the truth of the matter is that like, okay, not every woman that comes to church is a woman of God, and not every man that comes to church is a man of God.
That's what I tell my brother all the time.
And that you do have to be vigilant of. Like, girl, just because he comes on Sunday don't mean he have no fruit, and vice versa.
We have put the bar so low. We are okay with the man just having a Bible verse in their bio, and it could be the most. I'm not gonna call anybody out, but what I'm saying is that cannot be the bar. If you as a woman of God, we're talking about girls. I would love to make this for general, but we're talking to girls.
Yeah.
Girl, if he does not read his Bible and give it to you with understanding, and all he knows is Psalm 24 and maybe Jeremiah 29:11 and maybe some John 3:16, you got bigger issues to worry about.
He don't know John 3:16?
No.
Imagine if he don't know John 3:16.
That's crazy.
It's crazy work right there.
Yeah.
And you're like, nah, he's a man of God. No.
Yeah.
And like truly, like there's nobody that can like, we can sharpen each other, But we cannot.
And don't be impressed by somebody that's just doing the disciplines to prove to you that there's somebody who is of value or that has these disciplines in their life. It's not a Bible verse, but I live by this. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. If somebody straight up has told you, you know, I have never really been a church goer, believe them. When somebody tells you, you know, I came from toxic relationships, believe them, because they might be the one that's been toxic. If somebody tells you, you know, my parents have faith, but I'm not so sure about me, girl, we're not in this for missionary work. Like, this is not what
I'm going to save you. Girl, save yourself.
No, yeah. Like, this is not what we're doing. Like, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. If somebody has shown you that they are not a son of God, believe them. If somebody has shown you they are not a daughter of God, believe them. If somebody has shown you that they don't know how to pray, believe them. Because when those dark days comes and you need somebody to pray for you, don't believe that they're going to be warring for you in the spirit because they never learned how to do that in private. They just 100%. Can't do it.
100%. I think like...
And I'm not saying they can't grow, but I'm just saying...
No, but
I will not make you grow.
But I do think that sometimes we convince ourselves that we can make them.
No.
No one can... Girl, you can't even get yourself to desire God. That comes from him. Like, he leads you to himself.
Sometimes God can't even motivate us to do it.
No. And so, like, I think, like, let's be clear. When we're talking about, like, somebody not being potential, we're talking about because you and I are in our 30s now. Mm-hmm. Now, I met my husband at 19, mm-hmm. a completely different man. Mm-hmm. So we're not here telling a girl that's listening to this that's 19, like, no, I don't want no potential girl. You're a teenager still. Yeah. Like, it's okay.
Hey, but everybody, it's okay to not date.
Everybody, like, just let them grow up a little bit. Yeah. And even then, you don't have to submit yourself to watching anybody grow.
Let's say that. If he is not your husband, you do not owe them submission.
Or staying.
In the same way, guys, if you're hearing this, if she is not actually with you, you do not have to give any sort of provision. That is not your call over their life.
No.
That is not it. That is not the cross that God has told you to bear just yet.
It's not like being selfish. It's not, because a gentleman is a gentleman, you know, like.
Yes.
But
I'm not going 50-50, but that's another discussion.
No. But we're saying, like, potential in your 30s, like, no, girl. Like, he should have a job. He should be responsible with his bills. I came to my parents
and I said, you know, he has great potential, though. I fooled myself into thinking he has potential. At this point, no.
Not in your 30s. No. In your 30s, like, your man can't hold a job yet. Like, girl, no. Pray for him from afar.
Everybody's out to get him.
That's somebody's husband, but not mine.
Yeah, that's not mine. Girl, you can take him.
somebody. Yeah. He's somebody's prize, but he's not
mine.
But yeah, I think that, like, some of these things are easier said than done, but truly, our life, if we choose that we're going to include God in this process, then it does come with dying to some things of yourself. And it is okay also to say, I don't want to date the right way. I don't want to wait. I don't want to have no boundaries. I don't want to have, like,
God never forces you.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, but you will reap.
But my thing with people is keep the same energy. Just keep the same energy. Mm-hmm. Like, wherever you exclude God, you are your God. You are your idol. Mm-hmm. So then figure it out.
I'll even say this. Don't just include him in word. Like, is he the center? Is he the center of everything? If he's the center of what you do, is he the center of your relationship? Is he the center of your singleness? Because at any point, like, especially in singleness, like, it's very, very, very easy to get discouraged, and it's very easy to give way to a fleeting temptation. It's not hard. Either way, it's not hard. And it's not even hard to give way to temptation in marriage.
No.
So pick your heart. Pick your heart.
There was one thing, and we can end with this, because this, in some sort of way, has to do with singleness, but not really. Where I really, like, I understood what this person was saying, and we can kind of start wrapping it up. But she was talking about talking to women who were not in church at some point and started dating somebody, now has children out of wedlock, and now, you know, obviously they're not married. Now there's kids involved. And she was like, man, talk about the shame or the embarrassment that sometimes comes with that. And I just want to say, like, shame is not what God wants us to feel, right? But to that woman who maybe did not have the awareness of God or whatever, or let's be honest, sometimes that also happens with the awareness of God, where we make bad decisions or where we made decisions that led us to wherever. I believe that a child is always a blessing. And so the child, there's no shame there. Like, the child is not the shameful thing, like nothing. That's a blessing from God. But now her message, because it was extensive, but she was like, now she is building a relationship with God. And now she is trying to follow Jesus. So the question was like, man, speak on that. And even though it could be like an extensive question, I still think that we can tie it to the generational things and the generational mindset that we have to have. And now I think if I were to encourage that woman or give that woman any advice, maybe before you didn't know any better, you know? But now you're coming into the awareness that God does expect some things and God does expect certain alignments. And it's not for you to live in shame. And it's not for you to live like, oh man, like, no, like God doesn't want us.
Messed up for the rest of my life.
No.
Like, we believe in there is nothing that God cannot redeem. There is nothing that he can't redeem. Like, as you're saying about her story, I think immediately about my parents. My parents were deep into, I don't know how old my brothers were because I'm the third one, but they both weren't Christian when, you know, they had kids so young. And my dad's mom invited my parents to church, and my mom's answer was like, I'm not the one who needs Jesus. He's the one that needs Jesus. But they decided to go to church together that day. But the way that church was set up where I came from was women sit on one side, men sit on the other side. They went to church, like, begrudgingly. They didn't want to go. And then the altar call happens. And you know how they usually take you to another room to pray for you? When they went to the other room, my parents found each other there. They didn't know that they went up, both of them. And within 2 months of that point, they got legally and church married, and they became baptized. And so for me, when I think about them, no, their story shouldn't have been redeemed, but then a good God entered the story. And if that God hadn't entered that story, and my parents wouldn't have taken that step, and that's still dealing with like all the after effects that happened. Like, it wasn't, oh, now it's like green pastures all day. Like, no, there were some dark valleys, but now they knew God. And there were seasons that my mom had to fight when my dad went astray, but she still believed and she still prayed and she still thought that he was going to come back at some point. And now, glory to God, they have. And now I get to walk, you know, when we talk about generational, like, I get to walk the blessing of having known who Jesus is at an early age because of the steps that they made, both individually and together.
I think that now when there's especially like kids involved, regardless of how it started, there does have to be a conversation had of what we want to pass down to that child, what kind of stability we want to give that child, what kind of example.
You're the only one doing it at that point.
Yeah, like even if the other person's not saved, and there's so many testimonies in the gathering of the same thing, couples that had children out of wedlock. What I will not sugarcoat is that living like that in disobedience is not okay. Once you become aware of what is right, then no, you cannot continue ignoring God in that aspect. That is not correct. But I do think that if this is the season where you're in, then a true conversation needs to be had of, well, what is the foundation for our house? And then make a decision based on that. Because you could be with a person and even have had kids with a person who has no intent of leading your family forward, your children forward. And I think that that's a reality that you have to come to terms with. Or maybe it is like, no, let's give our child a stable life. We love each other. You know, yes, this was out of wedlock or whatever, but moving forward, man, we want our child to grow up in this kind of home, in this kind of environment, with these kind of values. And that conversation you can have at any age. I know that we can navigate in so many other areas, but I think we've said a lot.
Yeah. I think we landed at a good place.
Yeah. Whatever season that you're living in right now, may God always be our prize. May his presence be like what we pursue the most. Whether you're single, whether you're engaged, whether you're married, whether you're a parent now, in every season, that he would continue to be our prize. May we not follow him to receive no man, no child. May his presence be worth more than the blessings that he could or could not give us. This is easier said than done.
All of this.
But everybody is in a process, and we are all learning, to die to ourselves, to allow his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's at any stage.
Yes.
But if I would give you final encouragement words, and then you, Amy, singleness is not a punishment. You are not single because you're broken, because God is withholding. There is purpose for this season for you. Serve the Lord now. Say yes to the Lord now. Say yes to the Lord when you find your man. Say yes to the Lord when you get married. Say yes to the Lord when you have kids. This is not a punishment. God has purpose for every season.
Yeah. And I would say, don't see singleness for face value, because I feel that that's where the enemy likes to prey on the most. If you just see it as a waiting season, or just loneliness, or feeling incomplete, you're taking it for face value. I would invite you to look at it a little bit deeper, and to ask the Lord, God, what are you really trying to show me? What do you really want out of me? God, how can I view this as a ministry when I'm single, and how can you prepare me for the next season while still always seeing him as the prize? Because if you take it for face value, you will at some point feel like you can take it into your own hands and solve it in your own ways, but don't trust in your methods or anything like that. Trust in what God has called you to do, and realize that he will order your steps and order your seasons, and you are not too late for anything. Amen. We'll see you at Gathering.
All right, single folks.
We'll see you.
Goodbye.